Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. We are going to be discussing how to make artificial intelligence, which we're also going to refer to as AI throughout this, productive now. So today we have presenting Mark Jamison, who is our president and CEO of 2W Tech, as well as Tom Griern, who's our CTO, and honestly, the driver behind artificial intelligence, at least for what 2W Tech's initiatives are. So you're going to hear some great stuff from these guys today. If you're not familiar with 2W Tech, we are a technology solution provider that specializes in manufacturing. We offer cloud, ERP, data analytics, managed services, IT infrastructure, cybersecurity, and a ton of more stuff, honestly. So thanks for joining us today. I'm going to turn it over to Mark, and he is going to get us started. One quick note, we are going to use the Q&A function. So if at any time throughout the production or the webinar you want to ask a question, just go ahead and put it in there, and we'll get to a live Q&A at the end. All right, Mark.
All right, one other quick note. This is our first webinar on Teams. So we're doing a little experimentation as well. So bear with us if something weird happens. But anyway, thanks for joining us today. I don't know, it was probably just around the turn of the year, and ChatGPT had come out, and it was all this thing, and it was kind of like a really cool parlor trick. Hey, look, I can have this thing write me a limerick or a cute poem or something. And Tom called me and he said, I've been looking at some of the sneak peek stuff that's coming out from Microsoft, and I think we can use this for ourselves in short order. And I think that we can also figure out ways that we can bring value to our clients by utilizing it. And you can't turn on a news feed without reading something about artificial intelligence, and it's either going to rule us all. It's also going to all the imagery are like Terminator hands and Blade Runner heads and stuff like that. And so we decided to go in the complete other direction. And so that's why we settled on this guy here in the corner. We believe that artificial intelligence has the ability to revolutionize the way that we all do business, and quite frankly, it's already revolutionized the what we do here at 2W, and we're going to share a bunch of that with you to give you ideas about how you can utilize AI productively in your businesses right now. So, but first, what we want to do is we're going to just kind of go over a couple of things here. So the first thing we want to talk about is ChatGPT. ChatGPT is that website that you've all been to. It's natural language. It's really, really cool, but it's also really, really dangerous for your business. Tom, talk a little bit about kind of the danger of putting your business information in ChatGPT.
Sure, I can talk a little briefly about that. So these public models that are out there, ChatGPT being probably the most popular, but of course there's lots of them for images and various specific language ideas. Those are gathering training data. So they either explicitly tell you up front, hey, this is what we're doing and how we're gathering it, or they're using the data to train and reinforce good behavior, so to speak, by the model, and to remove bad behavior. You'll see the thumbs up, thumbs down type things in ChatGPT, for instance. The danger there, one of the big dangers there, is that it's not clearly defined how they're handling or working with data dropped in there. So an example we might show you later, if we have opportunity, is dropping a financial spreadsheet into a chat model and being able to ask questions about it, or have the model draw inferences on that. If you're doing that in one of those public models, it's not clearly defined and not clearly understood exactly how much of that data then may be retained. So dropping trademarked or secrets or confidential data in there, customer data, personally identifiable data, is a dangerous thing, because you don't have control over that, and you don't have a clear agreement with the operator as to what they're doing with that data.
So everybody keeps talking about these large language models. What is that?
Yeah, so that's a large language model. I mean, there's obviously it's an entire field of study, so we could spend the next week talking just about that. But it's a type of artificial intelligence model. There are others. It's specifically one that works in this world of natural language or natural language processing. And you could think about it as a sort of a statistical engine. So it takes what's been said so far in a conversation, along with whatever data it has to ground itself in and whatever training it's received, to predict what the next thing is that's said. So if I, say 1 + 1, it'll come back with 2, not because it did the math, but because statistically, based on all the data that it's looked at in its training, 1 + 1, the next thing that is said is 2. And you just extend that out into writing entire emails like Shakespeare, or financial reports like a pirate.
That's my favorite is when I make it talk like give me results in the voice of a pirate. So we're seeing a lot of messaging in the marketplace, and a lot of it comes around with our application is now embedded with AI, and we think that that's a really good use, and you're going to see a lot of publishers out there. Epicor is talking about they're going to embed it into Grow, but the Microsoft stack is actually introducing some pieces of artificial intelligence within that in the guise of Copilot, and so you're going to see some of that stuff. Some of it has no cost. Some of it does have cost. Some of it's not 100% baked, or you can kind of tell that it's relatively light. But what we really want to talk about today is how are you going to use natural language processing through both text and speech, right? To be able to use text and speech to drive whatever business information and whatever business queries you're trying to do with that. And then we're also going to show you some automation, how we've been able to do some automation through the analysis of text, which has been generated from our internal systems. But when we first started looking at this, we came up with okay, well, what is our strategy? And so what we decided to do, and we really decided that this is something we wanted to do internally at 2W, we said, look, what do we want to do here? We want to embed this in everything. And quite frankly, everything we do now moving forward, we do it through the lens of artificial intelligence. What can we do to bring artificial intelligence here, both internally in our internal systems and our internal processes, as well as externally? What can we do for our clients? How can we give our clients better visibility to what we're doing for them? And then, of course, how can we help our clients drive this? We also decided that we were going to let the billion-dollar companies invest the hundreds of millions of dollars and utilize utilize all the research that they're doing. Microsoft, Meta, Google, or Alphabet, they're all putting in hundreds of millions and millions of dollars into this technology, and we're going to let them do that first. In fact, everything you see here today we have done through the Microsoft stack and the tools that Microsoft has made available to us, and in some cases have made available to the market at large. The other thing we looked at is we said, what can we do to make AI productive now? I don't want to talk about the future. I don't want to talk about the potential. What can we do to leverage it right now? And so, Tom, talk a little bit about some of the things that we've been able to do to make AI productive here and now.
Yeah, and thanks, Mark. We're going to show some examples, I think, of some of these things also a little bit later in the call as time allows. We've been, like Mark said, we've been focused on, what can we do to improve productivity? What can we do to improve customer service? What are the things that make this productive for us now? And there's, a couple ideas here, a couple places that we've really been leaning into are with our internal help desk, first of all. So, as many of you know, we're 2W In addition to being a cloud solutions provider and an Epicor consultancy, we're also a managed solutions provider. So we provide, desktop support, server support, infrastructure, things like that. And along with that comes tickets, just thousands of tickets. They might be alerts. They might be alerts that have been escalated to where a human needs to be working with it. They might be a human request, whatever they are. And the routing and processing and assignment of those tickets is a full-time job. In fact, it's a full-time job for several people here at 2W. So one big area where we've really leaned into that is categorization, summarization, automatic routing, things like that of those tickets and those alerts. It's a huge time saver for us. Not so much about replacing anybody, that's not the idea here at all, but to take those routine, mundane tasks that need to be done just over and over and over reliably the same way. How do we automate those, and how do we take all those disparate sources and turn them into one thing? So that's been a huge part of it. Another is, and again, we'll have some examples, is on the customer service side. Our tickets in our system might range from a quick break fix. Hey, I can't get to this website. Oh, let me change the filter. It's done. Okay, close the ticket, 15 minutes, right? To, hey, we need this custom work done in Epicor, and it's going to take the next 9 months, and it's going to have dozens of people involved, and the ticket chain and might be hundreds of pages long. How do we summarize that? How do we say what's going on right now? How do we say who's next? Who's got the ball? So that type of normalizing and summarizing, getting things into, Mark used to call it the pizza tracker, and now I think he's calling it the mall map, but the You Are Here version of one of our support tickets or one of our project tickets. So that's been a big area. We're leaning on AI heavily internally for our DevOps teams. GitHub Copilot is one of the very first Copilot projects within Microsoft, and bringing automated testing, automated error detection, automated code generation and assistance has been a huge asset to that team. So those are some areas, and not nearly all.
Those are kind of the first, right? I mean, what we did, and I think this is important to share, is that we looked at where are the mundane pain points, the process bottlenecks that we thought we could develop artificial intelligence to help us through those processes. Then the fourth piece of our AI strategy is what's coming next. Like I said before, we are now looking at everything we do here in all new initiatives on how we can leverage artificial intelligence to help facilitate that process and where that goes. And one of the big pieces of that we're going to talk about here in just a second is knowledge mining, or the knowledge of your business, not data mining, but knowledge mining. And then when you talk about knowledge and you talk about the intellectual property of your business, you have to think about security. How can we keep this information from getting out into the wrong hands? How do we get this, to keep confidential information confidential? It's as simple as payroll data, or how do we keep, if you set up your web bot the wrong way, you could be giving out confidential proprietary data to anybody who asks on your website. So we want to be able to make sure that everything's secure. We're protecting the data, and the data only is presented to where it needs to go. And then, of course, the next piece is how do we take the same value that we've unleashed here through these processes at 2W, and how do we bring those values to our clients? And I think this is kind of the first step in that direction, is how can we show our clients where they can leverage this, how they can do this, and how we can help them get there. So Tom, let's talk about knowledge mining. So it's different than data mining. We talk about data mining all the time, right? And how we get that information out. But knowledge mining is a little more, unstructured, right? The knowledge of your business. So I think the first thing we need to do is we need to say, where does that knowledge live?
Yeah, and so that's so unstructured data is where probably a large chunk of your company's data, our company's data for sure, lives. 10,000 PDF files, 100,000, probably more than that. Word documents, things that have been created over time. They're not structured. They don't live in a database. They don't have a formal way of looking them up or a formal way of indexing them. They live in, or used to live in, these are the things that live in folders on file shares. They live in people's My Documents. They, are in email. You probably have people in your company. I'm one of them who has emails that go back for years and decades, right? You have that's all data. That's all knowledge that's out there. There's things about your customers, things about your business, things about what are and aren't working, that live in that unstructured data. And although there are search tools and have been attempts at making those things available, and there's some really pretty good ones. For the most part, the knowledge that's buried in those things is lost, especially once the original person or team or project is no longer there. So you might have had a brilliant engineer that documented the heck out of everything, and when they're gone, their knowledge of what they documented and how they documented it and where they documented it kind of goes with them, or the same with the team or a project. So that's a big area where I think that there's a lot of benefit to be had here.
And then, of course, the natural place that everyone would think about is the structured stuff, the stuff that sits in databases, your line of business systems, your ERP system, whatever it happens to be.
Yeah, and that's an area where you've already had good tools for at least finding what's there. There are search tools, there's querying methods, exports, reports, financial things, charts, graphs, all the things that come along with those structured data systems. Mostly those tools are good at helping you find what you're looking for. Some of them, again, some of the data modeling, data mining, business intelligence type tools that have come along over the last 5 to 7 years, have helped start to find new ideas and new knowledge in that data. But again, you're dealing with an overwhelming amount of data, whether it's just a small company and their financial system, or you're a large multinational with manufacturing and ERP and all of these different things. The amount of data can be really overwhelming really quickly. So yeah, that's another area where there's buried knowledge in that data.
So let's get to the fun part. Not that knowledge mining isn't fun, but let's get to the fun part. This is the stuff that we've done. This is actually a smaller subset of what we've done and how we've done it. We kind of broke it into 4 separate areas of how to tap into the knowledge of our business, and how do we use natural language to pull that knowledge out of the different pieces and parts. And so really kind of the first one was a model that was limited only to specific knowledge, right? Very small subset of data, only pulling up the knowledge that's in that particular model, and not really branching it out to other areas. So we call our internal AI Resolve IQ. We call it Resolve IQ because that's what it told us its name was. So who are we to argue? But talk a little bit. So one of the things we've done is we put all the Epicor user guides and some sales information into a model that then presents information back to us in questions and queries about Epicor. and it keeps it very, very tight in that particular model. And I think Tom's going to show that to you here real quick. And then the second one is limited to your corporate knowledge, right? So that's more of a database integration or the categorization and summarization of your corporate knowledge. So Tom, that was one of the first places that we went, was how do we categorize and summarize these tickets that might have literally be 100 pages long, and talk about a little bit how you went and tackled that.
Yeah, so we've got, we have all that data. Although it lives in a database, it's pretty much unstructured data, right? It's free form emails back and forth with a ticket, things like that. So we want to be able to take all of that, and I think the request came from our services delivery manager, like, how do I get my arms around what's going on with this ticket, right? So what we did was we put together, first of all, we trained a basic model, language model against the type of work that we do. So what types of tickets do we have? What types of issues? What do the resolutions look like? We did some basic training against that. And then from there, what we were able to do was say, okay, great, now take all of these notes that are attached to this ticket and put together a summary timeline. This is something some of you may have done with various ChatGPT type public tools. Take the notes, summarize them, put them together into a timeline, and give me a broad, like, what's going on here. And we're able then to put together, Mark, I don't know if you have one of the example, just a kind of a.
I do, actually. Let me.
I don't know how easily you can flip back and forth.
Yeah.
No, not that way. That's okay.
Okay. Not that one.
I might, if we get a minute toward the end, I'll show some of these as well, because
Okay.
I don't have them prepped. But basically what those are is, we're able to take and say, hey, for ticket number X, show me what's going on and who has the ball. That was a huge time saver for us. And I think it really started to improve customer service in that area. Now we've taken that and expanded it into a large, amount of automation where we're continuously monitoring those conversations within the tickets and looking for changes. Like, did something stall out? Was there a change in sentiment? That's something that these models are very good at, is evaluating the sentiment of people's language. Did something change? Is something going on in this ticket? Is it moving the way we expect it to or not? And if not, it starts to flag those things out. We integrate heavily with Microsoft Teams. So pushing messages into Teams and saying, hey, there's something going on with this ticket, for instance.
And then we got of course we need to integrate this into the AppleCore database. And we call that ERP, Enterprise Resource Planning Intelligence Engine. And that started to return, and that was we did it through the challenge of that is we had to do it through the AppleCore demo database because it's real life, customer data. And so we used the AppleCore demo database, and we started to return things like, which one of my shipments are at risk because I don't have, because of my inventory shortages. And it would go and it would do that analysis for us, and it would return it like that. But the really cool one that really revolutionized how we do stuff here is the third one, which is taking our corporate knowledge and also exposing it to outside knowledge and having it do some thinking for us, and start to generate real content. Tom, talk a little bit about how we're doing that.
Yeah, so that's pretty much like you said there, Mark. So we're taking these models that we've grounded with our knowledge. So they know about the AppleCore manuals, they know about our internal documentation on how we write statements of work, how we estimate how many hours it takes to perform a task, how they're continuously being updated, about hourly, I think, from the indexing on tickets that are out there, things like that. So there's information that's getting fed into the back end of these tools about our company. That's our corporate knowledge. But then, rather than limiting them to that grounding, we're then opening and looking at, go ahead and pull in external information. So, for instance, we take a feed from Microsoft data. So we're able to see latest Microsoft products, like latest Microsoft product guides, things like that, and put together. So our statement of work tool is able to generate a statement of work for an Intune deployment or a Microsoft 365 deployment with Azure Virtual Desktop or things like that. Where that's not all knowledge that we just had in our internal documentation, and we're not just driving templates or something like that, but we're actually able to combine those together. And those are we're doing a lot of that with what's called results augmented generation. So we go out, we do some lookups, we run some functions to grab data, feed that back into one of these language models and say, okay, here's our knowledge, here's this general knowledge, put it all together and give it to me in English. What does this look like? And it turns out those tools are really good with that. Results augmented generation or RAG generation, we can do multiple iterations of that as well, which is something that we take advantage of also with our ticket routing. We're able to look and say, okay, now who's got this skill? How do we route that? Things like that.
So, for example, every single job description that you see on our website in the careers page was originally written by Resolve IQ. It was now the final draft certainly was not, but because it had information on what 2W did and it had information on what a job description for that particular job would be, it would then peel us back, and then you could prompt it to say, make it more exciting, and then it would come back with better adjectives and different punctuation marks and things like that. And so but you can prompt it along the way like that. And for those of us who generate content here, it's been a huge time saver for us. We just recently rewrote our website, and a majority of those pages were the first draft of those pages were driven by this particular integration. And then automation grounded in corporate data. That's it's kind of a mouthful, but it's really the what we're doing to make our whole ticketing process more efficient.
Yeah, so that's the one where really we're feeding back in real time the notes that our own techs are making, for instance. So we might have an alert that comes in. I don't know, Windows Defender detected 10 failed logins, right? That's an alert that comes in. For the most part, that gets handled by built-in our already existing automation. We examine the account, we look to see is there an issue or not. If there's a concern or a question, it gets escalated. So we keep pushing that bar further and further along, though, where, okay, great, how does it get escalated? What tips do we need to give to the tech who's going to go look at this ticket? What other information would be useful? Go out and grab that information, present all that to the tech at the same time. So now when they open that alert up, or that escalated alert, they can see what's already been done. They can see what we've done in the past. They can see the history of that machine. Those are all things that are there available to them to work from. It speeds the research of looking into that issue from, potentially an hour or so down to just usually a minute or less to just, okay, this is, go ahead.
We have an example of, and again, we couldn't show you real time because it's real client data, but we have a redacted example. So Tom, walk everybody through kind of the ticket is generated, either somebody, leaves a voicemail, sends an email, whatever, it gets to us. It's this request. And then what?
Yeah, so in this case, looks like, so a human request has come in, it's hit our dispatch board. So that's something where a human would normally look at it. They're asking for a modification to a quote worksheet, right? And they've been kind enough to be specific about what it is that they're looking for. The next step along the way is to actually so the way that this flow looks like for us is these tickets come in. that fires off some back-end function calls that make requests into OpenAI, the Azure OpenAI, and include this data along with the customer and a whole bunch of other historical information. That model is grounded in history of our tickets, how we handle things, right? What do we do? What people have said in the past are there in their time entries and their other notes over the course of the almost 1.5 million tickets that 2W has generated over the last many years. So Mark, if you flip to the next, I think we see kind of what Resolve IQ came up with for that, right? So it was able to say, okay, here's what I think is next. And, so it summarized what the request is. It gave what a successful outcome looks like. And then it was able to put together what skills are required to solve this, make some recommendations about priority, skill level, which of our internal boards, which is kind of the how we segregate work, this goes on to, and then give some recommended next steps. Now those next steps, these aren't bad. Sometimes they're great. Sometimes they're a little bit out there, but we intentionally allow this to look outside the box a little bit and come up with new ways. But this gives somebody a real quick set of tools. It also helps our dispatch team. It helps our customer service team. People that may not be familiar with what is this screen in Epicor, right? It gives them enough understanding of what the problem is and what's needed to solve it that they can actually work with it.
Starting actually yesterday, we began to do some auto routing based upon these results. Some of the results for some of the basic, what we refer to as level 1 tickets. The hit rate was so high that now we're just automatically routing it to the appropriate resource. The other thing that we've baked into this is sentiment. So it looks for annoyance, I think, in the language that is being used. And if it senses, and we're not 100% live on this yet, but the results again are pretty promising. It looks for sentiment in the back and forth between the client and the tech or the consultant. And if it hits a certain threshold, it will fire an alert to management. And so we've been experimenting with that. Like I said, that's not quite fully baked yet, but that's starting to see some promises where maybe we can get out in front of somebody if we're doing not a very good job of communicating, for example.
Yeah.
So anyway, Tom, let's show some other stuff.
Yeah, we could do that for sure. And Mark, I think this is a great point to just kind of, or opportunity to go back and say, we're showing what the things are that we are doing here inside of 2W, which I think are some pretty cool things. We've definitely are doing some neat stuff. But with the idea that everybody on this call has got their own businesses, got their own structures, their own processes. Trying to give you some ideas of the things that we've come up with. Y'all are going to come up with way more interesting things than we have collectively. So, just trying to get the ideas flowing, something beyond, again, hey, write this email like a pirate, right? So,
which is still kind of cool.
Yeah, which is fun in and of itself, right? So I'm gonna share my screen, which is always exciting. Just gonna generally share my screen because I've got too many different things to pick from. I want to show off a couple of the things that we've already talked about and then get into a couple of the others, right? So one of the things that we talked about is are grounded in the Epicor database or in the Epicor user guides, right? This is just basically a demo interface. Those of you who are familiar with the Azure OpenAI, you've seen this interface before. And on the back end, then we've wired it into one of our custom models. Allows me to ask some generic questions about the Epicor documentation. This is a great tool for our sales. So, what modules include CRM functionality? And it's able to spit out, and then tell me, citations to which of the Epicor documents it got that data from, right? This is grounded in reality in the Epicor documentation. What do I need to do advanced financial reporting, right? Again, here's where you want to get started. Here's how you want to get started. And again, all of those things are all grounded in the Epicor user guides themselves. Or what do I need to do to set up MRP for the first time? This one's probably the most out there one, and I'm not really sure that it's gathered the same things that our MRP experts here at 2W would say, but it's put together something that we could at least start to work from, right? And I don't know, Mark, Epicor's not my, let's see, I don't know if I have the programming guide in here or not, but it would be more up my alley here. So
There you go.
yeah. So, and this is kind of okay. This is doing it through Application Studio. It's not necessarily the way that our guys would do it, but again, this is it's gone out. It's found probably the Application Studio guide is somewhere in here, and it's using that as its reference for how to do this. So that type of thing, we're able to query against those. That saves a lot of time. That's a lot faster than just searching against the help. It's actually able to consolidate together things. So that's one place, is that grounded in the Epicor stuff. We mentioned grounded in our own knowledge. So just against our own internal guides, what data do we have, right? So this is Resolve IQ, actually just kind of talking to Resolve IQ is the way I think of this. And it's able to tell me things about 2W. I mean, the something simple you might do with like a web chat bot. How do I reach the help desk? Should be able to tell me this. Yeah, so there's, send it by email or call the phone, right? Or do the website. But this is also a tool that I use a lot. Let's see, I want to put together a meeting agenda. Now, you've all seen ChatGPT, so I'm not going to bore you to death on all of this, but we're picking, I don't know, new carpet colors. What this is going to do, though, is this may not turn out to be a great example, maybe it will, but this knows about 2W. This knows about our personnel. It knows about our facilities. So you may see interspersed in here things about our internal structure. Not really, but you kind of get the idea. Again, I don't need to bore you with ChatGPT in general, but this is internal. This is using Azure OpenAI. This is using data that we control that's inside of our Azure environment, and we know what's happening with it. I think that's the important part. Like we talked earlier, we could drop financial data in here or something like that and start to ask questions about it, and that would be, I would feel comfortable and safe doing that. So that's another example that's there. I don't have one to do it with, but those of you who've been in meetings with me, you've received output from our meetings one. So again, this is grounded in 2W data and Epicor products, but it's specifically targeted towards meetings. And you'll see a summary of your meetings come out of here, and it gets a little bit chipper from time to time. I wanted to show a couple we talked about in Teams being able to go in and look up tickets. So I've kind of blanked out the company name, and I've left our employee names in, and first names in. But this is, in Teams. Again, I've got a screenshot so I could do that, but just asking for the status of a ticket, and it's saying, hey, here's what's going on. It's completed. Here's what it was about, right? Or if I wanted to see the actual history, so this is the history for that same ticket. Manage bot, which is our Teams bot that goes out and talks to Resolve IQ for data. Went out to Resolve IQ, was able to put together pretty much the same summary, slightly different wording, along with the timeline of the ticket. Hey, here's what happened. This is really great for our customer service people. You can also see those sentiment values. You can see this was overall a fairly happy ticket. So 5 being the middle of the road. So that's the type of stuff that we're doing in there. I'm going to pause for a second, Mark, and let you talk, and then I'll set up a couple more examples and demos.
Sure. So one of the things that we're looking at is we're looking at where else can we bring value to this. And so I think, Tom, you're going to show them the SOW one.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
very valuable
So
one.
one of the challenges our salespeople have and our consultants and techs is how do we put together a rough draft of an SOW? Sometimes they can get pretty complicated and they get pretty intense. And so what we did was we took a series of what we deemed to be good SOWs, or scopes of work, and we put them into this model. And now we have our salespeople now can start to generate scopes of work, at least the first drafts of scopes of work, through this model. You ready?
Yeah, let me share out my screen again. Great. And I'm actually going to just open a fresh one because I think we can just do this live. And if so, I'm able to come in here, and again, I'm asking just for example statements of work, right? So it's saying, well, what do you want to do? Who's the client? Well, it's Acme Corp. And I don't know, we wanted to deploy M365 with full email security and Teams calling, right? Now, if necessary, this would ask me some other questions, but it's going to start by as quickly as possible giving me, a basic statement of work, right? We've asked for the email security, so it's put in the security features such as anti-spam, anti-malware, data loss prevention, and so on. All of that, it's drawn up. Now, this is based on our standards here inside of 2W for what looks like a normal statement of work. I might come in here and say, great, I also want Intune. And the sales team can sit here and work with this back and forth, right? So now it's able to add it into a statement of work for Intune. We could have asked it to include that as part of the existing statement of work, and it would have done that as well. So that's an example of that. It becomes a very iterative back and forth. This needs to be done by October 15. And it'll start to put together a timeline for me. I haven't given it quite enough data to really fill that in, but you can understand that I could just keep giving it data and letting it sort of fill in the blanks, right? So augmenting it as I go.
So this process without AI, normally would have been a 45-minute meeting with 4 people kicking this around. And now what we've been able to do is we've been able to eliminate that. We create this, we take it to the subject matter expert. Subject matter expert says, yep, let's add these 3 more things, and away we go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. So we're able to just go in and start to put together. Again, this is going out and grabbing information from externally and combining with our internal data to determine how to break this stuff up, what steps to add, things like that.
Okay, Tom, I want to be conscious on time here, and I don't want to forget about talking about security. So let's jump out of this and let's talk about privacy and security, because this is you don't want to broadcast your business information across the internet, and you don't want to do it across your employee base. Let's just kind of talk a little bit about this, and why is this different than, I have payroll data and it's hidden in a folder that's not named, that's really hard to get to. Isn't that good enough, right? Let's just kind of talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, that's, if we go back a few years, most unstructured data in particular was in, file shares, folders within those shares. Maybe you've got access controls enabled, maybe not. Maybe you just map the drive letters to the people who need it, and other people, it might have had access, might have not, but mostly it was hard to find. And that kind of was a lot of the data security for people. But even, well-designed setups where you had, all of your payroll data in a folder with NTFS permissions that specifically locked it down to your payroll department and your CFO and things like that, right? That, as people have moved to SharePoint, or Teams, which this file structure sits on top of SharePoint, or have moved to other cloud-based or more collaborative type tools, those files have found their way into more of a less structured way, more organized around team membership, group memberships, things like that, instead of that old traditional kind of tree structure. You've also got the ability built into most of those tools now, for instance, OneDrive, SharePoint, things like that, where I might have something in a secure folder, but the users that have access to that folder have the ability to share it with somebody in another that's outside of that group, for instance. And then that one file or that one folder or that one tree might be exposed. So all of that's been kind of brewing over the last several years now, as getting data and getting information shared in a collaborative way has been important. Now you're going to turn that stuff loose in a way that exposes it easily. So where before your payroll data I keep using payroll data, but just picture whatever that private data you have might have been well buried at least, and possibly well secured. Now, if you've got a chat bot that's been trained on your company data, what prevents that chat bot from just answering the question, how much does Tom make? And if I ask that question, it ought to be able to answer it in a perfect world. If somebody else asks that question and doesn't have the access to that information, it needs to not. So building out the security model around your AI applications is really important. The authentication model is very important. And then segregating and correctly identifying the data on the back end so that you're able to match user and their access with the data that's being retrieved, no matter how it's being retrieved, starts to get really important. You're seeing a lot of things where companies have deployed a chatbot on their website and been really excited about it, not knowing that it's also, all the internal confidential data that was in the same set of reference documents is also accessible to anybody who thinks to ask the chatbot for that data. Or maybe they can ask, I think Amazon had this problem a while back, where you could ask for personally identifiable information about another customer and it would just answer you. That kind of thing. I mean, big companies are making some of these mistakes and finding it out as they go. Like Mark said at the beginning, we're interested in letting the big companies make the mistakes and do the learning, and then we're going to ride on their coattails a little bit about, what the best ways to handle that are. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I think it seems like an overarching task to do this, and I don't think it's as difficult as you think it is. Part of it is this is part of the reason why we have started this. We have this kind of the segmented strategy of AI application here, so where it's only this data or that data versus everything at 2W. But Microsoft has products or other products available that assist in this and do this for you based upon roles and titles and membership and groups and things like that. So it's not I don't think you look at this and you say, I'm going to have to go look at every single piece of data there, and that's not necessarily the case. There is kind of a larger hammer that you can take to this problem. But there's two. That's the two ways. Is let's use a product, the Microsoft product that'll do that for you. Good group policy, security initiatives, which you should be doing anyway, and then keeping your, at least to start your initial applications to a subset of data and kind of locked within that data. So to that end, okay, so you've been listening to us for 51 minutes. What do I do? I'm in. I want to go. What do I do? Well, the first thing you need to do is you need to figure out what your application is. Where are the pain points? What can you automate? Where are you constantly having meetings to share knowledge? And does that exist someplace? And can you do that? So find an application. You might have user guides. It might be as simple as you have user guides to the products that you make. Um, do you want to put that into a model that makes it easily accessible and will answer questions on your products? There you go. There's a great way to get started in that. So first thing you need to do is find the application. The next thing we want to do is we want to create a plan. So where's your data live? And where does your knowledge live? And start to catalog that stuff for whatever your application has to be, right? Then let's go make it accessible. Typically, that's as simple as putting it into a folder in SharePoint. When we first started doing some of this, we would just take what we had and we literally went around and said, "Hey, do you have this? Hey, do you have that?" And we just started sticking it in a folder in Teams, and Tom started teaching the AI to that particular thing. And then let's make sure that everything that you want out, and everything you want is safe, that you don't want out, and do that evaluation. And I would say right now you probably don't want to try this at home. I would find somebody who knows what they're doing. That's part of the reason why we've gone through this initiative internally, so we could, as Tom likes to say, eat our own dog food before we take it out to everybody else. And I think this is, and so we certainly, if you've got an application and you want to explore it, I think we might be a really good place to start. So that's what we have. Sue, we got any questions out there?
Just a couple, which is probably good since we're going a little long here. This all looks really cool. How expensive is it?
So it's actually, it depends on what you want to do. If you're looking to us to do a full integration to some database, that probably might get a little expensive. But again, the application may do that. I think if you were to take user guides and put them into a language model, I think that's not a very expensive. That's some Microsoft licensing and a few hours from us to help configure that. So I don't think you'd be looking at a huge cost to that. Tom, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think that's accurate. And I would encourage, if you've got an idea, get out there, whether you do it yourself or you do it with us, or, if you do it with someone else. You can do, and we can do some pretty inexpensive proof of concept type things. Now, when you get all the way to production, you're going to turn this thing loose and you're going to have it automate your customer service, or you're going to have it, I don't know, sending thousands of emails a day for handling some project or whatever. Let's spend the time to really build a full production application. But, talk to us, talk to somebody about building a proof of concept. You've got a good idea. Hey, it would be nice if we could. Those are one of the great things about these tools, is that they really can be bolted together fairly efficiently and effectively. And there's great samples out there that we can build on, you can build on to do a quick proof of concept.
Can you talk a little bit more about the specific task that you can automate in a business setting using AI?
You're kind of only limited by your imagination there, really. We've seen and worked on projects from, that involve things that we aren't talking about today. So vision, speech, those types of things for sure. Machinery, automation of machinery type things based on other stuff. For us, and the things that we're seeing the most of, though, are things like we've shown today, where it's knowledge mining, summarization, alerting, monitoring type things. That we haven't talked a lot about anomaly detection, things like that today. That's a big one for sure, especially your machine tools. I don't know, the spindle speed on this machine is 10% slower than it typically is at this time of day. That might indicate that the bit is dull, or that there's a problem with the bearing, or whatever, right? Those types of things, all that data is out there. There's massive piles of data. You've probably got pretty screens and graphs to look at it now, but what if AI were watching that and able to spot that anomaly, throw something out and say, hey, sharpen that bit, or let's check the oil on that thing, or whatever the problem is, right? And save that $100,000 machine from downtime.
We have time for one more question. How difficult was it to integrate AI into the existing systems you're using, like Azure and Microsoft 365?
We were able to get some pretty quick drafts going pretty quickly. So late last year was when for us, started down this road. I would say that we were doing productive use beyond the chat interface type stuff within a couple of months. It depends on your platform for sure. Some things are more closed than others. One of the harder ones for us has been Epicor ERP, doing that in a effective, secure way. We're making and have made some really great strides at that. And we didn't really show off ERP today, I guess, did we, Mark? But
No.
But being able to do queries that combine your data with live data. So, which of my customers are affected by wildfires in California? And having it go find my customers, find where the wildfires are from a news source, combine that data together and give me something that I can look to and say, hey, maybe I want to change my shipping or something like that, right? That kind of thing we can do today. It's a little bit harder. Our CRM and our internal ticketing systems were a little bit easier. They had a good, well-defined REST interface that worked really well. So things like that.
All right, great. I think that's all the questions we have. If you didn't have an opportunity to ask your questions, you can reach out to us. There's our telephone number, email, website on there. You can reply to the email that I had sent you as well, and we will get you connected with the right person to answer your questions. Thank you, guys, and thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Great. Thanks, everyone.